They got to come to me. The UFC, NYC, and MSG, let me tell you, it's a match made in heaven. Saturday night was the first UFC fight ever in New York. This crowd was electric. Conor McGregor takes down Eddie Alvarez in the second round. This man has it all. The cocky personality, smart mouth, and most importantly, he's got the skills to back it up. 9-1 in the UFC. But Stephen A., the question is, does the UFC need McGregor, or does McGregor need the UFC more?
It is rare that I would say this because my rule of thinking in business is that no one individual, no name is bigger than the brand. Always understand that no matter who you think you are, no matter how successful you are, it's the brand that ensures your success. The UFC's existence elevates McGregor. It's not the other way around. Having said that, knowing the aspirations of the UFC and how it wants to ingratiate itself in the American sports fabric, the way that it has so successfully under the stewardship of Dana White, in order for it to continue to elevate to that level, I think that he's right to some degree. Is McGregor right about the ownership? You need to get tested. Let's not get beside ourselves now. You don't deserve an ownership stake in the UFC. Those who deserve an ownership stake are those who actually take their dollars and share the risk and put their money into the mix. You don't deserve ownership just because you're a star representing the brand and you go out there and you generate money for the sport, which is actually what you're supposed to be doing anyway. Having said that, he does deserve mega pay. He is box office. Max Kellerman, I was there Saturday night. I was there. You understand? And I'm telling you right now, I was ringside. I was sitting with a crew of people who will remain nameless, but trust me, they're the who's who. You know, in this world, as far as I'm concerned, it was special. And I'm telling you right now, when he rolled up in there with 50s, I get money. I mean, it was, I run New York. I mean, you got, man.
Come in and say, I run New York, and you're from Ireland.
Listen, I have been there when Mike Tyson has entered the ring. I have been there when Floyd Money Mayweather has entered the ring. I'm a John Bones Jones fan. I was there when he fought. No, I wasn't there. I didn't show up when he fought. But I just watched that on television. I have not seen too much like McGregor rolling into an arena the way that he did at Madison Square Garden on Saturday night. It was absolutely special and phenomenal. So I'm only saying that to say this last point. I'll defer to your judgment because I know from a pugilistic point, you really know this stuff. But this dude is box office. He deserves mega dollars, but not ownership.
And I'm a huge Conor McGregor fan, and I'm usually pro-labor in these instances. Conor McGregor not only talks the talk, he walks the walk. And by walks the walk, I mean he takes risks, even in terms of who he fights, right? And then immediate rematches and a loss to a bigger, stronger guy, and then figures out a way to win, and then wins his
Saturday night. He destroyed Eddie Alvarez.
And then he was so dominant against Alvarez with his striking. And look, so does he deserve a lot of money? Yes. However, the interesting thing about the UFC is Dana White and Zuffa and the UFC, and obviously it's now sold, but they created the marketplace for MMA, at least in this country. It didn't used to exist, and then they created it. And in terms of stars, there used to be Gracie and Shamrock, and then Tito Ortiz and Liddell and Couture and Matt Hughes and ESPN.
It didn't sound like this.
But it kept getting bigger and bigger.
And Anderson Silva.
John Bones Jones, of course, Brock Lesnar, and then Ronda Rousey very recently. And now we have Conor McGregor. The point is, the UFC is, there will always be more stars. I'm not saying Conor McGregor isn't unique. He is. He's enormous. Their biggest star ever. But the UFC is less dependent on stars than, say, boxing. Because boxing is a bunch of independent contractors who hope that someone can come along and capture the public's imagination. The UFC is more like the NFL or MLB or the NBA. When someone says, hey, you know what they should do in boxing? There's no they. There's no one organization perceived as more legitimate than all the others in boxing that can plot out the future. There is a they in MMA. It's called the UFC. It's like Band-Aid means bandage. It's a name brand that's so powerful it actually means the product itself. You don't say MMA, you say UFC. Dana White did that. And so he, having created the marketplace in order for Conor McGregor to be in the position that he makes the money that he does, and the fact that they are less dependent on those kind of personalities than boxing, they've had so many and it just continues to grow, makes me say, well, I hope Conor McGregor gets all the money in the world. Asking for an ownership stake is probably far-fetched.
I will say this, though. He does make a point by saying, I want my share. It doesn't have to be ownership. But what it does have to be is the UFC recognizing this dude is one of a kind. Dana White is on the record. I've never seen anything like him. WME, IMG paid $4.2 million. Billion, I'm sorry, $4.2 billion to own this product. So the point is that if they want a return on their investment, you got to take care of this dude because he's the kind of dude that will walk away. You know who he is to me, Max? He's a combination of Mike Tyson and Floyd Money Mayweather.
Here's another thing, though.
Yeah. That's what he's a combination of.
About
not
UFC.
On that level as of yet because it's UFC instead of boxing, but he's a combo.
Keep in mind about the UFC, there are no soft touches. They're all world-class fighters. And it's a sport where, you know, like if you're watching a fight, not everyone has one-punch power in boxing. But because of submission holds, etc., everyone's a de facto one-punch knockout artist in the UFC. And since you're always fighting a good fighter, I don't care who you are, you're going to lose. Conor McGregor already did recently barely avenge the defeat. And if you saw Nurmagomedov on the undercard, I don't know that Conor McGregor beats Nurmagomedov. I might make Nurmagomedov the favorite. That dude is dominant. The interesting thing about that fight, by the way, is that Nurmagomedov was hurt by a strike early in the fight. And what Conor McGregor can do, he's a well-rounded mixed martial artist who can strike with his hands. But I wonder who would be the favorite in that fight.
Let me say this to you.
And they're in the same division.
Let me say this to you. I'm sitting ringside. And I saw Conor McGregor connect on 3 punches in the first round. All 3 punches dropped Alvarez.
Yep, he can punch.
Oh, yeah.
Now, Alvarez...
He couldn't take him down.
And by the way,
if he took him down, it could have been a little dangerous.
That's right, but he couldn't. But here's the thing the thing that I found so interesting. Eddie Alvarez walked into the ring. Shorter, yes, but looking bigger. By the time the second round arrived, he looked smaller.
Yep.
I mean, he looked bigger before the fight started, and then looked smaller once he got hit.
And
it's like his body shrunk for crying out.
The same thing could happen to Nurmagomedov. Conor McGregor is a really talented guy. I'm just saying, I suspect that Nurmagomedov is the favorite in that fight.
Fine.
They're in the same division, and that's a fight that's got to happen before too long.
Let me say this to you. This is the determination that I have reached about Conor McGregor, because I've seen him get hit, and I've seen him be able to take a punch. You have to be Nate Diaz tight in terms of your ability to take a punch to beat Conor McGregor.
Or you got to get him on the ground fast.
What I'm saying is, if Conor McGregor hits you and you can't take a punch, I don't give a damn what else you can do. It's over.
You know what he has as a striker, by the way, from a boxing point of view, what McGregor has as a striker, because in the MMA, in the UFC, you got to be a jack of all trades, a master of one. Maybe you could master one and just be competent in other areas. As a striker with his hands, he not only has power, but he's really accurate with his power punches. So he's dangerous for anybody. There's no question about it.
And guys are scared of him. Yeah. Guys are scared of him. I mean, the minute Eddie got hit by him, you could see Eddie was scared.
Oh, he had hands behind the back.
For all of that.
That's a Roy Jones move.
The second he got, we saw what eventually happened to Roy. The point is, when he got hit, he was scared. After that, this is the kind of stuff that Conor McGregor is doing to people. He is scaring you to death. You're scared.
What eventually happened to Roy is he got old. When he was in his prime,
I got to cover the UFC for 6 years, be at all the fights, but being in New York, something special. I missed it for sure. 206 and 205 206, 207 are going to be good cards too, coming up Toronto and Vegas. But coming up next, should Zeke Elliott be the MVP favorite? You all voted at home and will not want to miss these guys' reaction to the results. And it's the time to officially hit the panic button with that bad man.
Minnesota lost again. We're a game back. We're kind of right where we were last week. Obviously, love to be standing up here and after a win, but right now we got to work on ourselves and get this thing turned around.